Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Poza is a community partner specialist for the program, and he's here with us throughout the series. Good morning, John, and who do you have on the program for us today?
Good morning, Joe. It's good to be back. This morning, we have William Eisler, who is the president and CEO of the Fred Rogers Company. So we're welcoming him this morning. I know Bill and I have been corresponding for the last several weeks, and we finally got together, and Bill is on the program. So welcome, Bill.
John, thank you very much. And Joe, it's great to be joining you also.
Great. Glad to have you.
Yeah, Bill, there's so much that we want to talk to you about the Fred Rogers Company, about Fred's legacy, and so many of the interesting projects that the company is involved with. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you, I know you came from an educational background. You were involved in school administration. And how did you come about to getting involved with Fred Rogers?
It's rather interesting. I was working in Western Pennsylvania in a multi-service community program for young children and going for my master's at the University of Pittsburgh. And Fred's mentor, Dr. Margaret McFarland, was one of my professors. And she introduced me to Fred in the early 70s, and we got to know each other. And we corresponded when he would come to Harrisburg. When I was working in Harrisburg in state government, he would come for different events. We got to know each other. And in the early 80s, he asked if I would be interested in coming back to Pittsburgh, which is where I was born and raised, and work for him in the company. And I did. And I've been here since about 1983, working at the company, worked with him until his death. And we continue to work with his legacy right now, right today. We're doing things that are in the spirit of Fred in terms of providing quality programming for children.
And what kind of programming is that? Because I think if someone were to hear that there is such a thing as the Fred Rogers Company, they would say, okay, well, great, they're putting on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, reruns of that. But what else are you doing that's new and that's 2014-ish?
Well, 2014-ish is we have actually three programs for young children on the public broadcasting service. One is called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which has been on the air for 2 years. It is based on the puppets from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood of Make-Believe, based on Daniel Tiger, who was the first puppet that Fred ever used when he got into television back in the early 50s. Daniel Tiger is a program for the youngest age, the first viewers of PBS, which is a program in social emotional learning. It is on every single day for an hour, broadcast on most public television stations at 9 a.m. It is a program that has received a tremendous amount of, and again, it goes to the creators and the producers, Angela Santamero and Paul Siefkin here at the Fred Rogers Company. Angela Santamero is the creator of Blue's Clues and creator of Daniel, and those two people put together a great program. The second program that we did has been on the air for about a year. It's called Pay Plus Cat. It's a preschool math problem-solving program. Both of those programs are animated, and a week ago, PBS premiered the third program, which is called The Odd Squad, which is for 6 to 8-year-olds, although younger and older children will watch it. It's live action. It also is math problem solving. So the Fred Rogers Company is alive and well. As our tagline says, the legacy lives on, and we feel that Fred's early start and groundbreaking work in children's television continues through these programs and other work we do within the community.
Well, back in the day, there were 3 channels, maybe 4. There might be ABC, NBC, and a PBS. Today, obviously, there are all kinds of signals and all kinds of platforms. How do you get through and get heard and get seen through all the other programming, some of which obviously is not so healthy for children?
Joe, it is a great question, and I mean you set the stage. I mean, this is as we know today, television, broadcast, digital, whatever you want to call it, is really a changing marketplace. One of the reasons we're with PBS is, one, because of the quality that they stand for, but also because they have a phenomenal digital platform. Their website for children and families is one of the best in the industry. To give you an example, Daniel has been on the air for 2 years. In August, a couple months ago, Daniel Tiger had a new baby sister, baby Margaret. And in the month of August, on the PBS website, there were 65 million streams of that program, of Daniel's new sister. What that tells us is parents and children want things when they want it. And PBS has created a platform that you can not only view the program on broadcast television when it is scheduled, but then you can log on to their website and you can stream that program. And along with the program, there are a lot of games and activities and suggestions for parents. So when we deal with anger management on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, one of the strategy songs to help children is, when you feel so mad you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The child's having trouble with anger. The parent can always say to the child, hey, why don't we watch Daniel Tiger and see how he deals with anger? So I think that the way this medium is changing is it's becoming much more instantaneous. And when we look at those streams, those 65 million streams in the month of August on the PBS website, about 80 to 85% of them are on portable devices, either phones and or tablets. So, your question is incredibly timely. Parents and children today can get what they need, what they want, when they want it. And that's the magic to me of this whole medium today that we're working with, whether it is broadcast or whether it is via the web.
And the thing, and you're so right, Bill, and the thing that makes today's communications industry so unique in terms of the access to programs like that on the web and on portable devices is the fact that not only are parents, families getting the actual program content, but there is also the access through those accessories for activities, for instructional things that parents can utilize with their children.
Absolutely. And John, that's a lot of the work of the Keys, yours and the other ones around the state, and also the Office of Early Learning and Child Development. I mean, really trying to make available when adults need information about children. I have to say that OCDale, as we call the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, their website and their information to parents and caregivers is also growing exponentially every day, and really a great resource, and one I think that listeners can use.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because it's so new, the program Odd Squad, which really just debuted, okay? It's for slightly older children geared
right.
towards, but still about problem solving and math skills, which is so critical today. This is kind of a little bit of a departure and maybe a throwback to Fred's days, because isn't it true that this is the first live with actual people, and it's not animated? And so I was wondering how it's been received, and how do you think Fred would have received this new type of program?
It's a great question, and as I remind people, it's always very, very difficult to try to to determine how somebody who's no longer here would feel about a program. But I think Fred was really interested in providing the best possible for children. And the two creators of Odd Squad, two very, very creative young men, Tim McKeown and Adam Peltzman, really have created a program that focuses on children's ability to work with each other to solve problems. That was at the heart, and you're right, that was the heart of the neighborhood. I mean, Fred felt that you give children the tools, you give parents the tools to really work out the issues together. And I think that he would be happy with the work that's going on here, and he would see the program as another really positive way for children to understand what issues are and how they can resolve issues together. Even though they're math, it is working together to solve a problem. And that's learning. I mean, that's lifelong learning. One of the key skills that you work with at the Keys when you're working with folks who are dealing with young children, and we all work with who are working with young children, is really helping children to work together. There's three of us on this radio program today. I'm sitting in Pittsburgh. The two of you are in Du Bois. it's the ability of the three of us to really work cooperatively to make this happen today. That's one of the messages we want to get across on Odd Squad. It's an important one. It was an important one for Fred when he was alive, and it's an important one for us today as we carry on his legacy.
Well, things certainly have changed in the way that people receive media, and also I think changed in production values. And Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and my daughters grew up watching it. It was gentle, slow-paced. Children today are geared to a faster pace, greater production value, quicker shots. Are you, now you say with Odd Squad that they're live actors on that, but are you attempting to adapt to the way maybe that kids view video now, where it's a little bit faster, a little bit slicker?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the production values of the Neighborhood, if you trace the roots of the Neighborhood, everybody wanted to know why Fred wore sneakers. And this predates the two of you, but when Fred was doing his first children's program in the 50s on public television, it was live action. There was no such thing as tape. And he would have to play the organ on one side of the studio and run across to the other side of the studio to do puppets. And he wore tennis shoes so people wouldn't hear him running across the studio floor. And they stayed with him throughout his life. My point is that today, with the way the technology is, you can do just about anything on video. I mean, we talk about blue screens, green screens, we talk about computer animated, we could talk about computer generated. But what is still important is the conversation between the young student, the young children on that program whenever they're solving problems. So the backgrounds and the activities may be fast, but they still have to talk to each other. They still have to solve the problems. I often say, and I think this is very, very true in all of our experiences, if you read a book to a child and that child is sitting on your lap, that child is engaged. There is not any video going on. It is you telling a story to a child. And that magic is still as important today to a child and an adult and parent as it was in any other time in our history. So I think that you're right. The production values have increased. We can do a lot more with video than we've ever done before. But still, children like one-on-one, small groups, conversations, being talked with, stories. So I think it's the mix of all that that is really important in a child's life. And that's what we try to do in our programming.
In watching some of the other commercially produced programming for young children, I wonder sometime watching these if maybe there's doing a little bit of damage in terms of attention span, because they seem to me anyhow to go overboard in terms of production value and cutting and just movement. Do you personally feel that there's an inherent problem in some of these other programs in that they are encouraging a shorter attention span, or is that just the way the world is today?
I have to tell you something, Joe. That's a question that we are asked all the time, and no, I think it's something that we have to take into consideration every time we do something with young children, because attention span is really important. You know, one of the things that Fred always said is if he had to do it all over again, he would really love to have done radio. And he was somebody who grew up with radio, and you think about radio. And I can't tell you the number of people that say something to me about they heard it on the radio. All of us spend a lot of time in our cars. And when you think about the magic of radio, you're listening to voices, and you have to draw your own pictures in your mind. I want to go back to that when it comes to anything we do with young children. When we do something for young children, we really are trying to set the foundation for all future learning. And what we call today executive skills, being able to spend time on task, which to me would be concentration, which would be as you're talking about, attention span, is something we have to have if we're going to be successful adults. We know that. I mean, if you're getting ready to produce a radio program, you have to have the attention span to be able to go, if you're going to be on for a half hour, exactly how that half hour is going to be spent. So, yes, I think it's a very important skill. Yes, I think we have to be very attuned to it when we're working with young children. And I have to tell you again, I'm going to go back to it. You put children in a preschool program, you see them in a block area, you see them in an area with paints and crayons. They want to spend time, concentrated time. And we have to encourage that more and more. So you're absolutely right. Expanding a child's attention span, getting them to focus, helping them with that skill is something that's going to be with them for life, and a necessary skill in life.
Bill, I want to go back to the radio aspect, and you mentioned that Fred, in many ways, would have liked to have gone back to the radio medium. Well, of course, I'm sure he would be very proud. You work with WQED in Pittsburgh, which is a big partner, and they do the IQ radio program, which is 24 hours. It's an online radio station. It's produced every Saturday, and of course, you can listen to it all week long. That would be something I'm sure he would be very much in favor of.
Well, the person who really put that together, Larry Berger, spent time with Fred. I mean, Larry is a fascinating person, and he worked on Saturday mornings. This is called the Saturday Light Brigade. Was his first program,
right?
And it was a program where he would be on, and they would have riddles, they would have puzzles, they would have stories. And I have to say, 15 years later, it is now 24 hours online. And you're absolutely right, John, that this is something that kids do like. I mean, there's Disney radio. Again, you don't have to have all the bells and whistles to have children be interested in something and have children focus on something. Anytime I speak to a group of adults, if you say Goodnight Moon and Red Balloon, the majority of people know the book. I mean, it is amazing how you can have children become engaged without a lot of bells and whistles.
I take it the three of us are parents, and I had little children at one time, and I think anyone, I hate to admit this, but you guys would probably admit this too, that as a parent there were times when the child was in front of the TV, the TV was babysitting to a degree. Right. I hate to admit that. But
no, that's true.
What can parents do to at least ensure that the time that their kids are parked in front of the screen is beneficial, or at least not harmful to them?
That, Joe, that again. I mean, the questions are right on. I mean, this is where parents have to spend time and in a sense watch with, almost over the shoulder of the child. We didn't do it, but some folks in Ohio in child care programs did some work about 15 or 20 years ago with Mr. Rogers in preschool programs, and we call it over the shoulder watching. They were watching with children, and what they learned is that you didn't need a lot of fancy, quick action, lots of cuts. The children really focused, and children listened. And they learned as adults from watching the neighborhood with children. And in a sense, I think parents have to see what their children are watching. And if they see something that they don't think is appropriate, they should talk with the child about it. If the child sees something that scares them, oftentimes we talk about the child's first time in a movie theater when they're young and the lights go out and it's very, very dark. If there's a lot of scary stuff on the screen, children want to get out. We have to try to see through the eyes of the child. We have to talk with the child and explain to the child what is going on, especially if the child is asking questions. So I think parents should be watching with their children. We call that co-viewing. We know from parents there's a tremendous amount of co-viewing with Daniel, because parents will write us letters about the strategy songs and saying, my child is going through potty training, and because of your strategy song, it has really helped. When you have to go right away, wash, flush, and be on your way. We know that works. So I think the co-viewing thing with parents is very, very critical, especially for preschool children. Know what your children are watching.
Speaking of results, has there been any testing to verify that children who grew up on programs like Mr. Rogers or Sesame Street did better academically than kids who didn't watch these educational shows?
for us, there's much more anecdotal information. We do know one of the studies that was done years ago of children watching The Neighborhood is that the researchers would be in the back of the room and children would be watching something that would be very, very fast-paced, and there would be tension. And as soon as The Neighborhood would go on, researchers would see children relax. That doesn't talk about cognitive skills, but it does talk about stressful, non-stressful situations. Sesame Street has a body of research about children who have watched that program. And using video and computer-generated games and other activities, there is research that these tools, they are tools, can be helpful for a child's later learning. But again, we have to see these as tools. They do not replace the live interaction and relationship base that children really need and is much more important than just the tools themselves.
Now, Bill, I know we talked about The Neighborhood and the Odd Squad. Let me just address Peg Plus Cat a little bit. It's been on for a couple of years. And again, it's an animated program for preschoolers. But isn't that a program that also produced for PBS, but also comes in short summary lessons?
Yes, I mean they're both Daniel and Peg are 11-minute segments, 2 11-minute segments. When we then have in Daniel, we have live interstitial. What is interstitial? Meaning between the two programs, we have live action with children. Peg, sometimes the segments run a little longer, but they're 2, and one is really a beginning. If I may use Peg, would be the introduction to maybe a math problem. The second one would be just a little bit more advanced, but they work hand in glove. And so to be very specific, yes, they are two programs put together in a half hour that help children when it comes to problem solving with a math issue, like triangles, like parallel lines. And it's very beginning math skill programs. We are working with a grant from the National Science Foundation and the Allegheny County Intermediate Unit's Head Start program on how we can use Peg Plus Cat and the principles of the Peg Plus Cat in preschool programs. Not necessarily the broadcast part of it, but how the concepts are presented to children as very, very early preschool math type work within a preschool program. I don't know if that answers your specific question. If it didn't, come back to me.
No, I think it did. And of course, those are all excellent programs. And I, from a personal standpoint, I've seen them. And what I always think is clever, not only in the written content, but in the actual music that draws in the viewer, that makes those catchy phrases is always fantastic. But you know
John,
what, Bill?
I have to say something because you hit on the music, and this is something that is fascinating to me. Jennifer Oxley is a brilliant designer, and she created Peg Plus Cat. Her partner is a gentleman by the name of Billy Aronson, who wrote the book for the Broadway musical Rent. So we say that every single Peg Plus Cat is like a mini Broadway show. I mean, music is incredibly important to these two creators. And Billy has an extensive background on Broadway.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Bill, I'll tell you, the program has gone too quickly, and
fascinating. Thanks for coming on.
Great conversation, and we really appreciate you coming on. Wish we had more time, but I wanted to thank you so much, and good luck with the Fred Rogers Company and everything it does for children.
Well, John, thank you for having me on. And as I said in the beginning before we went on air, it's very difficult to be with somebody like Joe, who's got one of the greatest broadcasting voices I've ever heard. I've never met him, but I'll tell you, it's one of the great things that, people would be in an elevator and Fred would be speaking and they'd turn around and they'd say, didn't recognize his face, I recognized the voice. And you have one of those voices that will stick with you for a long time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you for doing this for children and families. It's great.
Great. And I will take that as a cue to wrap up the program. That's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at the same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. If you have questions, please email them to questions@nwirkey.org. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.